Hello everyone on YouTube, welcome to the first video of 2022. Happy New Year! In this video I want to talk about something I've been wanting to talk about, and it's to do with Linux. Now you see, many people recommend, well, people who are extreme tech people like me, recommend people switching to Windows try out Linux. Simply, no. Don't try out Linux. And the reason is, if you've been accustomed to Windows, then Linux is going to be entirely new to you. And this is where I think the Linux community is a bit, well, is too... Yes, Linux is great and everything. Linux is free and open source. Linux is a brilliant platform. But you need to understand that not everyone wants to do things wants to use Linux, if you know what I mean. I mean, people who are switching from Windows. Let's look at important businesses like banks and building societies. They're not going to go around and say, "We're switching you all to something like Ubuntu," because their software just doesn't work on Ubuntu. And there are people out there that are totally against using open source software. And I have a mixed feeling of both. My feelings are mixed. But all I can say is you shouldn't really be recommending Linux to everyone, because, I mean, look at it this way. You can have a customer. If you're working in in a computer repair store, you'll have a customer coming in with an old Windows 7 laptop that is no longer getting updates. You tell them you're the Linux junkie who says, "Oh, just switch to my operating system, it'll be fun." They go ahead and do that, and then they'll realise, hold on a minute, I can't run a certain piece of software because it doesn't work on Linux. Let's say they buy a printer CD if their computer still has a disk drive, or they buy a brand new printer and they go to plug it into their computer and Linux doesn't recognize it. That is a common scenario. Linux doesn't work on 100% of hardware. So, common scenarios like this are what makes people not want to use Linux. But I have some good news. If you don't want to use Linux, there is a good alternative. Yep. It's a company called Neverware, which was recently acquired by Google in 2020. They make an operating system called CloudReady, and it's basically Chromium OS built to run on any hardware. And here's why I think this is better than installing a standard Linux distribution. It's a lot lighter than Linux. I mean, sure, there are lightweight Linux distributions, but none come as close to what you'll get on CloudReady. Using CloudReady is exactly like using a Chromebook, minus Android and Linux app support. But you're getting an easy-to-use browser that's always up to date. Well, you're actually getting Chromium, but Google Chrome is based off of Chromium. You have access to millions of apps and extensions from the Chrome store. You have access to most of the features of Chrome OS except Google Assistant and Nearby Share. And while Neverware has a certified models list, chances are CloudReady may work on your system, so it's worth giving it a try. And plus, unlike Linux, it may work on most hardware. I mean, Linux isn't going to work on that fancy new AMD graphics card because it's not designed to run on newer computers. And we need to understand what Linux was intended for in the first place. Linux was intended to run on servers. Most of the world's servers today are powered by Linux. Linux is also used by developers for developing applications for such servers, and in some cases developing Android apps with the Android tools. Let me just shut my phone up. Sorry about that. It's how we tell our phones to be quiet. That's just an expression. Don't feel offended by that. But I don't like it when my phone's speaking to me while I'm recording. Anyway, I just want to let everyone understand that Linux isn't the answer to everything. You can't go telling someone that they should install Linux just because you want them to use Linux. You need to do some research first. What type of computer they have, what type of software they're going to run, and you're going to have to spend a heck of a lot of time training them how to use Linux, especially if it's one of your family members. So in short, no, don't go recommending Linux. Most people will upgrade to the latest version of Windows anyway because it's the software they're used to. Businesses are trained to use Windows. I mean, you can have a company full of 1,000 people and they'd have to be retrained to use Linux. No. Not worth it. Whereas Cloud Ready, if you're used to using Google Chrome, then yeah, I'll see where they're going with that. So they can use that, or they can upgrade to Windows 10. Upgrading to Linux is a big no-no. Well, in fact, you're not really upgrading to Linux at all, because I see it as a downgrade. I mean, when you look at Windows 11 now, there's so many cool features. And if you install Linux, you're losing most of those features. Especially if you've got hardware that only works on Windows, such as your Acer True Harmony or your Lenovo Dolby Atmos powered speakers. Anyway, that was just a quick update.
Stop.
This is Jordan signing off, saying have a good day, everyone.